Is TikTok on?
No,
It's on standby to go live.
Yeah, you can go ahead. You can go ahead and go live.
Okay.
Okay. It's Friday morning. Happy Friday. Pie day. I think my daughter was in a pie competition and got to 60 digits, but did not win, I'm told. But anyways, happy Pie Day. Happy Friday. Today we are talking about mindset, right, Michael?
Yeah.
Mindset and the importance of mindset. And I'll say mindset is probably, one of the most important topics for life, whether that be business or just life in general. Everything comes down to mindset. I remember one of my dad's friends as a kid had this saying that I always thought was really funny that, every every day's a Saturday, every Thursday's Thanksgiving, every night's a Friday night. Everything is attitude, and it is so true in general about everything in life that it all comes down to mindset and attitude. And it's one of those things that you kind of have to live it to really understand it. And so it's not something that, I can sit here and tell you necessarily how to do it, other than encourage you to kind of go out and figure it out for yourself to an extent. But, I think we all find that what we focus on ultimately becomes our reality. And, I've experienced that so many times in my life. And that's why, you hear me talking about the importance of having a long-term vision that you can be excited about waking up every day and focusing on and working towards, because what you will find is over a long enough period of time, if you continue that consistent focus, then that becomes your reality. And I've experienced this just so many times. I was actually doing a podcast earlier this week, and kind of digging into this particular subject. And I've really, one of the first times that I ever realized the importance of this kind of focus and this mindset was, when I got my job at Goldman. That was something that I had focused on for a few years prior to actually making that happen. I did not go to an Ivy League school. I went to GW in Washington, D.C., but it was not a feeder school for, Goldman. And it's not, generally they only, especially at the time, were, hiring from Ivy Leagues or from people that had connections and all of this kind of stuff. And I remember going to the Barnes and Noble in Georgetown every Sunday when I was doing my Sunday practice that I talked about in my last productivity video. But every Sunday I would go and, start doing my homework and my studying and figuring out what I was going to, be attacking that following week. But they had a book in the kind of career section or whatever section they would call it, called The Vault Guide to Finance. And they also had the Vault Guide to, law firms and, like every industry that you would be interested in. And I would open that book every single Sunday. And on the first page, it was number one, Goldman Sachs. That was the number one pinnacle financial firm at the time. And I told myself that I was going to work there out of college. And every single Sunday I would, probably for 15 minutes, focus on that and think about that and dream about it, and work towards it. But then like all of my actions every single week, every single day, were ultimately centered on that big goal for me, which I ultimately turned into reality. And then in the early days of, starting FilterBuy, actually, when I bought the industrial supply business that I ultimately turned into FilterBuy, I actually have writing from, when I was 29 years old saying, okay, well, in 10 years when I'm 40 or when I'm 40 years old, I am going to have a $70 million a year business making, $7 million of net income. That was my goal. And I was thinking, I think in 10 years I can make that happen. And, fast forward 10 years and I basically more than tripled that. And that was kind of the second lesson that I learned about the importance of mindset and the importance of, focus and vision. And that is part of the reason why, now I have, set the vision of going much bigger, building the world's leading indoor air quality company and, really building a legacy holding company in business that I can be proud of and build for the rest of my life. And, I have, tens of billions of dollars of ambition, but also like, other types of things that are really wrapped up into that for me. And for my personal vision. But the reason why I have, gone so public about it and I'm talking about it so widely, and also, why I'm so why I have the courage to do it is because I've seen the importance of that mindset and that focus earlier on in my life and my career. I just gave you two key examples of that. But I really would encourage anybody that's watching this to really take stock for themselves about what that means for them. And that can take so many different forms. But if you have that like long-term vision, long-term focus for whatever life it is you want to build, and generally it's not like, a pile of money at the end, because like the money is never the thing that you actually want. That just represents whatever kind of life it is that you're ultimately looking to build. And for a lot of people, that's a lot more attainable than maybe they realize or like to think about in the short term. But if you stay focused on that vision, what you're going to find is that every single day your actions are going to be consistent with that in the little subtle ways, and then they stack up, they compound, and 10 years from now, if you maintain that focus, you maintain that consistency of vision, maintain that mindset and that belief, you're going to be shocked just how far you can go. I mean, and I would say don't make the mistake that I did of aiming too small, especially if you're young and early on in your career. You should have big ambition, and you should have big dreams, and you should have a big vision, and that should scare you a little bit. That's healthy to be a little bit scared. If it doesn't scare you, then you're not aiming big enough, and you don't have a big enough vision, in my opinion, because it's not something that's going to excite you enough to wake up and actually push towards it every single day. So, when I think about mindset, that is what comes to my mind, and so I would definitely love to have some questions or answer any questions as it relates to mindset. I think it's just so important, and so many people get stuck, in negative mindsets or in limiting mindsets or fearful mindsets, all of those things. And it's so easy to get into that negative feedback loop. And this is, if you're there, then this is your reminder and your permission to snap out of it and do something different and choose to focus on something different. Choose to switch your focus to something that is expansive, that is that is exciting, that brings joy for you. And if you shift your focus to that, even if it's concocted in the beginning, it may not be natural for you to shift your focus. It's not easy. It's not the easy thing to do or the natural thing to do. But you have the ability to change that mindset and to make that switch. And this is your reminder that it all comes down to you, and it's your responsibility to make that shift, to make that mindset shift. And it's under your control. And you may not want to admit that to yourself, but deep down, it's under your control. And so if nothing else, if you're in that mindset, then this is what I hope you take away from this live. So with that, I guess I will start taking some questions. I know Michael had some questions queued up from other places that we will start with. What was the biggest mental shift you had to make when transitioning from a career in finance to becoming an entrepreneur in manufacturing? It really, there was like a big identity shift, right? I went from, effectively working for the premier financial firm at Goldman Sachs and making, 7 figures and, feeling like a master of the universe to an extent, even if that's just a concocted thing. It's, kind of the aura that you have. And then when you go out and you tell people where you're working, it's you get a lot of, you get a bit of an ego boost with that, to completely pivoting my identity to a small upstart manufacturer of air filters. And so that was a very big ego shift, if nothing else, to overcome. And that was probably a lot harder than I initially thought it would be, because I didn't think much about it in those terms before I made that decision and made that transition. But then once I made that transition, I was, I had to basically change and reframe my whole identity. And it took me, years really to figure out, what that new identity was. But ultimately for me, it came down to shifting my identity to being a builder. And that I think that is what I resonate the most with at this point in my life. And, like if I were to articulate to someone at the essence of what I do is I'm a builder. I like to go out and create things, create value that at least I believe are net positives for both society and those around me. And I have a tangible manifestation of that through the products that we create and the people that we touch. And that is what drives me. And so for me, it was making the mental shift for just how I define myself, because when you're working in a place like Goldman, or you have a more traditional path, call it, which could take a lot of different forms, you get a lot of positive feedback, even if it's subtle, from those around you, because people understand it, and so that you get the respect from that, or at least you don't stand out in a negative way from that. And these people can put you in a framework or put you in a box and say, oh yeah, that's a finance guy. I know that kind of know, and people kind of know what that means, right? But then when you choose to go out and do something that is uniquely yours, as I have chosen, which I highly recommend for everyone, you have to kind of redefine that for both yourself and for those around you. And that means that you're oftentimes going to be uncomfortable for a little while, because you're going to be misunderstood. And that's so much of what entrepreneurship and growth is about, is being willing to be misunderstood for a while you go out and kind of prove through your actions and through your results, ultimately, the kind of undeniable path that you have chosen. And in my case, it really took at least 8 years probably to really feel like I finally had found my footing and was kind of coming into my own, and showing the tangible kind of rewards that people still may not understand it, but they at least start to respect it in a different way, right? And that really it took at least 8 years, and I think maybe I'm still probably working on that now. If I'm perfectly honest with you, I still think sometimes I'm quite misunderstood in what I'm actually doing and driven by. But you have to be willing to sacrifice what other people think about you for living the truest form of yourself. And that takes a self-awareness, and it takes a self-respect, and it takes a confidence that you have to build, because it's easier to follow somebody else's path, or to take the path that those around you think is the right path for you, even though they don't really know your essence or who you are. And so, for me, I was fortunate to have the guts and the really stubbornness to take that leap and to commit to it all in. But it was much more of a mental reframing than even I realized, just because you realize how much of your identity is wrapped up in what other people around you are saying or thinking. And I think that if you unpack a lot of your decisions, you'll find that so many decisions that you make end up being driven by how people around you are think about you. And I think that's very unhealthy. And I think that social media and the pressures around that have only made that more true. That we conform more than ever, or take action to basically please those around us, or to show off to those around us, or on social media, or whatever the case might be. And that really oftentimes comes at the detriment to your long-term happiness and growth and success. And I think the sooner that you can realize that, and start to change the framework to being the truest version of yourself, and being honest with yourself about what it is that you want to do with your life, and what you want your life to look like, irrespective of what those around you think you should want your life to look like, the better off you're going to be. And that's a hard lesson to learn. It took me a long time to learn it. In some ways, I'm still learning it. It's not natural, but I just know that is where true freedom comes, where true happiness comes. And for me, that comes in building and being a builder, and building, not just within my business, which is like my manifestation of it, but building my life, and my life and the life of those that I connect with. And I think that the sooner you can have the self-awareness of figuring out what that is for you, the better off you will be, and better off everybody around you in society will be. And for me, entrepreneurship is just an extension of that. And I think that we would as a society be a lot better off if more people thought about business and entrepreneurship in that way. So that's the long-winded answer to your question. What's next? Were there moments when you doubted yourself when starting FilterBuy? How did you push past those internal barriers to keep moving? Absolutely. I mean, like, I think anybody would be lying. Anybody that's done anything big or anything at all would be lying to you if they did not say there were moments of self-doubt or fear. But what kind of differentiates, I think, those that are successful and those that aren't are the ones that will push forward anyways and do the thing anyways. The way I like to frame it, and framed it before, is you have to train yourself to reduce the lag between knowing an action you should take and actually taking that action. And if you were to look at so much fear, fear really just comes from kind of knowing what you should do and not taking that action. And so that fear and that anxiety comes from that lack of action. That is actually where it comes from. It's not from not knowing what to do. It's knowing what to do and just not going and taking that action to resolve whatever is driving that fear. And so the sooner the quicker you can train yourself to take an action once you feel that fear and you kind of know how you need to resolve something, or you kind of know what actions you need to take. The sooner you can just take that actions and get past it, the less fear and anxiety you're going to live in. And that's one of the ironies about it, is so many people that live in fear are doing so, and then they end up having to take that action at some point in the future, and then put it behind them, and then the anxiety from it or the uncertainty from it gets put behind them, but they live in fear because they just keep procrastinating and lagging and not taking that action that they know that they should take. And so, yes, of course, I've been fearful and doubted myself many times, and still do oftentimes on a day-to-day basis. But I think I have really trained myself to reduce the time from when I have that fear and when I take the action to alleviate it. And that is the muscle that I think people need to work on building, especially if you want to be an entrepreneur or you want to grow or do anything big. And so, like, you're not going to be able to live a life without fear or anxiety or without self-doubt. That's just not realistic. I mean, unless you're maybe like a narcissist or on some type of a psychological spectrum. I think for the average person, you're going to have these things pop up, and that's completely normal. It's completely okay, but it's how you deal with it and how you push forward regardless that ultimately makes the difference between those who are going to be successful and do big things and those that don't. And that's a muscle that you build over time. It's not something that I think you're naturally born with. It's not something that anybody's just naturally good at. It's a choice that you ultimately make. And it starts small and it builds. And as you get, further and further into that process, it becomes easier. Maybe the problems or the things you're dealing with become bigger. And that's certainly been my experience. If you want to continue to grow and do bigger and bigger things, then the scale of these things actually becomes bigger. But your muscle to be able to deal with that adversity, to deal with that fear, to deal with that anxiety, just is stronger and stronger and stronger. And that is what true growth is about. It's not about ever alleviating these feelings. It's about training the muscle to be able to push past them. And the good news is that anybody can do it, and anybody can train themselves to do it. It's a choice, and it's a consistent action that you are taking, and a consistent choice you're making to minimize that time between when you have that fear or that and the knowledge of what action you need to take and actually taking that action. It's not really that simple. You can practice it in small ways and in big ways, but building that muscle over time would serve anyone, and it's something that I highly recommend you starting today, and stop making excuses and stop procrastinating from doing the things that deep down you need to do. So that's how I'd answer that. What's your mental framework for dealing with failure or unexpected challenges? How do you turn setbacks into learning opportunities? Um, you know, I think that the kind of quick answer to that is that, framing from a business perspective, although I think this is true for most things in life, but I view like any business problem to be solvable. And like once you start with just um, that self belief, knowing that there is no problem that is going to pop up, that there is not a solution that I'm going to be able to find. And like once you have that belief, then it becomes just a function of, okay, how am I going to solve it? What is the path of least resistance for me solving this? What are the first principles of that I need to be thinking about to actually solve these problems? Doesn't mean it's fun. I mean, I get stuck with problems all the time that I have to deal with, or I have to solve, or I have to overcome, that I don't know how I'm going to do it when I get hit with them, and they seem very scary, and you know if I let my brain start to go like play worst case scenarios, it can be very challenging if I let myself spend too much time focusing on those outcomes. But because I have trained myself and truly do have the belief that any business problem is solvable, then I have trained my mind to immediately move to, okay, well, this sucks. I'm mad that I have to deal with this, or I can't believe I have to deal with it. Like you get that for a moment, but then quickly change the mindset to, oh, okay, now what action do I need to take now to solve this, or to push it forward, or to get back on the right track? And so it really comes back to what I was saying before of shortening the time between having that problem or knowing something's happening and actually like, okay, how am I going to start working through and finding the solution, and having a bias to action towards that. And so, it's like anything, you train yourself to do that, and you actually watch yourself do it over time, or you overcome this adversity over time, and you prove to yourself that you can do it and that you will do it. And then you start to see those patterns, and then when bad things happen, it doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt or sting, or make you want to crawl into bed and hide from the world. I mean, we all have those things that happen to us that make us want to retreat. But when you train yourself to not wallow in that for more than 30 seconds, I think Tony Robbins, maybe saw an interview with him saying that he's trained himself maybe like the 2-minute rule. Like when something like this happens, he'll give himself 2 minutes to, have self-pity and to curse himself or whatever the case might be. But within 2 minutes, he's got to snap out of it and push forward. I think he was talking about how, it used to be 2 days, and then it was, then it was 24 hours, and then it was 10 hours, and then it was 2 hours, and now it's 2 minutes. I may be paraphrasing it incorrectly, but it was that sentiment. And I very much feel the same way, in that I have trained myself over time to spend less time in that kind of self-pity and that wallowing and uncertainty, and just saying, hey, I'm going to accept it. I'm going to move on, and I'm going to take the action that I know I need to take to push forward. It's a muscle that you train. I mean, there's no cheat code to that. Unfortunately, there's no 10-step process I can give you for doing that in every aspect of your life. It's just not realistic. It's something that you have to have the belief around. Like you can hear what I'm saying, and if you don't believe it, then it's not going to work for you. That's just how powerful the mind is, and how the power of a mindset, and what you focus on, and all that kind of stuff. But if you really believe it, as I do, then it's just a matter of practicing it. And you're not going to be great at first, and it may take you weeks or days sometimes to overcome from these things and overcome that mindset. But you're going to train yourself to shorten that time as time goes on, and you're going to wake up one day and find that you feel almost invincible because you've trained yourself to overcome that adversity over and over and over again. And you've accepted that that is what life is about. At the end of the day, is if you want to grow, you're going to face adversity. You're going to face resistance. And I always talk about the book, the Art of War with by Stephen Pressfield. The reason I like it so much is really that is exactly what this talks about. It talks about this resistance. If you want to grow, you're going to come up against resistance. Like the forces of the world and of society are there to basically kind of keep you from making that growth. They want everything is gravity wants to kind of hold you down and keep you from growing and pushing forward. Your job in life is to overcome that resistance in whatever form it manifests, overcome that resistance over and over again. And the more that you train yourself to do that, the more often that you actually succeed at doing that, you're going to find the better you get at it, and the more and more resistance you're able to overcome. And that is such a freeing feeling once you understand that, once you feel it, once you live it. And the only way that you're going to earn that is by choosing to wake up every day and overcome that resistance and to grow and to build. And doesn't mean it's going to be easy in the beginning. It's extremely hard, and it's always going to be extremely hard. But you just get better and better at it. Your muscles get stronger, and you get to a point that you're able to overcome things that when you're at some other point in your life would have completely broken you. And that's certainly my lived experience, and it's something I believe very strongly in. What's the biggest lesson you've learned in managing people? Managing people is one of the hardest aspects of business and really of life, right? Like interpersonal relationships and understanding motivations of people and understanding how different people are wired, and how you're going to how you're going to build systems that people are able to understand and to work well within. I mean, there's so many aspects of it that to pick one thing is almost not fair. I mean, I think it's certainly my thinking on it has certainly evolved over time, but I think that to sum it up, if I were to come to the essence of it, really comes down to kind of the essence of this talk, in that every person is wired differently. And it's why, I say, I think it is like, I think too many people are probably chasing entrepreneurship because they're doing it because it looks so glamorous on social media, but it's not necessarily consistent with who they are as a person. And how that relates to lessons around managing people is, I think, to be a really good manager and to be able to build an organization at scale, you have to compile people that are consistent with the task, that have a personality and a in a drive around the things that you are looking to accomplish. And so you have to make sure you're finding the right skill sets and the right personalities to go into whatever role or whatever vision that you're ultimately looking at building. And I think that the best organizations are very good at attracting the talent that has the buy into the larger organizational vision, but then the task within that are very much consistent with whoever that leader or that person, that employee is as a person. And I think that's a skill that's hard to learn over time, but the best organizations are really good at filtering that out, and then putting the right types of people with the right not just types of experience, but personality traits and interest into the right roles, and then incentivizing them appropriately. And the reality is that people are wired differently, and like when you're looking at different parts of an organization, you're going to be looking for different types of character traits, and there is no one size fits all approach. And ultimately making sure that you're matching jobs and functions with the right, with people that have the right skill sets, but mentality and desires that are aligned with that and with your larger company vision. And I think when I look at the times where I have been successful in hiring and mentoring and bringing along in a career, it almost always fits the underlying there's an alignment within the organizational principles, and then there's an alignment with that person about what they want out of life, being able to actually provide them a pathway for that. I'm actually working on a video script right now where I talk about this a little bit, where effectively you have to have the dreams of your organization have to be big enough to harness the dreams of those that you're hiring, and it's like your job to actually provide the opportunities and the frameworks to give people to allow people to fulfill their dreams. And that dreams are very unique, and everybody has a very different very different set of skills and a set of different sets of needs and desires out of life. And I think that the best organizations have big visions, big dreams, and allows people employees to ultimately build out their own dreams within it. And I think that aspirationally, that's what I want to focus on and want to do. And that's a very hard thing to actually execute on. But I think that is what is, when I think about, when your question in managing people, it's really, really comes down to that is, having a big enough vision and dream as an organization that it can ultimately allow people that you're managing to flourish and to build out their own dreams within that, and finding that as well as alignment with your company's vision and alignment with skill sets. That's a very tricky puzzle to solve, but it's one that when you do solve it, magic can happen. And I've seen that time and again. And it's a constant as an organization. It's a constant battle you're fighting, and you get it right in some departments, and then in other departments you have to work towards finding it, and it's just finding that alignment, both from an organizational perspective and from a employees or person's career growth and life growth perspective, right? And I think that when you find the alignment of those is where true magic happens. And when you're leading an organization like me, that's one of the biggest things. That's one of your biggest responsibilities is to figure that out. And it's a constant process that's constantly evolving that, I certainly am, always trying to get better and better at cracking that code. So hopefully that answers your question, Michael. Adam Fowler, how do you balance time spent growing your business with time spent improving existing business processes? It's a good question. It's something I've been thinking a lot about lately. Just have a sip of water. It really depends on the stage of the business that you're in. I would say that if you're an entrepreneur or you're the CEO of a business, first and foremost, your job is to set that vision and to continue pushing and growing. I mean, if you're going to be the leader of a business, I like to think you need to make sure that you have the resources to build the systems you need to operate your business, and hopefully do that through other people. So first and foremost, you have to go out and get the resources to be able to afford or hire the people to help you to build the systems that you need to keep your business operating. But if you're an entrepreneur or a CEO, certainly in a company that where growth is an objective, then growth is going to have to be a large portion of your time and energy, in my opinion, if you really want to build something big. I am doing my absolute best to spend more and more of my time on things that grow the business. In my perfect world, I would spend 100% of my time doing that, to be honest with you. I mean, I think I'm at the point in my career where that is the highest leverage use of my time, and what on a good week I'm spending most of my time doing. Generally, when I'm spending more time in the existing systems or existing processes, then there's something that's broken, and it's my job to get in there and fix it, or to help to find a solution for that. And there are some weeks where I spend 100% of my time fixing problems or fixing systems, and that has gotten less and less as we've matured, and as I've been able to hire a better and better team around me. But, I think that for me, at least, success would look like spending almost all of my time on future growth and building and, investing type initiatives. So that is really where, like, at this point in my career, where I am spending more and more of my time and where I want my energy to be going. Early stages, that is not realistic, in my opinion. And, I spent the first, you know, 8 years probably, really having to do both. And spent, my day to day building systems and solving problems. And then my nights and weekends focused on, hey, how am I going to grow? What new marketing initiatives do I need to put into place? Or, strategically, how do I need to be thinking about the business? I mean, that's kind of how I balanced it early on. And it's not fun. And I think I definitely did it the hard way, to be honest with you. But you can't only operate if you really want to grow it. Like one thing I see so many small businesses struggle with, and through my Filter by Ventures, which I'd highly recommend you to go to filterbyventures.com and kind of read about kind of what I am intending to do in the future with small businesses and with partnering with smaller businesses, is I see so many entrepreneurs kind of get stuck, in the kind of early stages, generally under $10 million of revenue. They kind of plateau. They're not really able to grow. And more often than not, it's because they can't see the forest from the trees, because they're stuck in that kind of day-to-day operations. And they don't have the ability to kind of step back and see bigger picture, where they are in their industry, or where they are as a business, and how they are going to break out of that plateau where they are. And I think that's one of the most common problems of small business, is like they end up getting to a point where they may be making a decent amount of income, but it's really a job more than it is a business. And I've really committed my life to building sustainable systems that allow a repeatable outcome in a business, and doing that at scale. And that is really how you build a business, and how you get past that kind of growth plateau of a business. And so I would say, if you're in a position where you're spending all of your time doing that operating, and you're finding that you're not growing, then you need to be spending every waking hour figuring out how you're going to solve that problem, and get yourself that time back to be able to start thinking strategically about how you're going to grow that business, and have other people that are doing the day-to-day operational aspects of that business. It's an easy thing to say, and it's a very difficult thing to execute. I would say that it took me a long time to learn that lesson, and in some ways I still am learning that lesson. I'm fortunate that I'm fairly adept at operating on a lot of different levels, and I think that is a superpower that I have, that is not necessarily replicatable for everyone. But I look at this point in my business, I am really transitioning to being more of the investor and kind of growth and business development person, more than an operator and doer. And I think that for me, that's certainly an important transition to go through. And I think that for most kind of smaller businesses, you need to actually do that earlier on, and that's almost always the thing that is holding people back from actually doing something bigger or growing. And so if you're asking the question, then my answer for you ultimately would be, figure out a way to reduce the amount of time that you need to be spending in the day to day of your business as much as humanly possible. And I would start, if you're looking for, like, how do you start with that, then think about like established business operating systems. Like, you have the EOS philosophy, with Traction is the name of the book, or you have the Rockefeller Habits. There are a number of kind of business or organizational type books that I would recommend reading. I do not follow any one specific type of organizational structure, because we're kind of like multiple businesses in one. So, like, I think that, like, what you need to run a manufacturing business is is quite different than a distribution business, which is quite different than a kind of marketing operation. Like each of those are going to have which we have each of those within our business organization. So we run each of those teams a little bit differently. And I think that, for us at least that works. But I like to go and read books like that and study things like that to get just a larger understanding of how other people are thinking about it. And then ultimately find a framework or build a framework for myself or for my internal team to that works for us and make it my own. And so if you're struggling with this problem, I would recommend you going through that process and really thinking about it and committing to yourself that you're going to find a way to spend more and more of your time focusing on growing the business rather than actually operating within it. And I think that when you're in it, it's a very hard thing to imagine. And believe me, I've been there. I think any entrepreneur has been there. But if you really want to grow and build a sustainable asset, and really, quite frankly, a sellable asset, if that's ultimately your dream or your vision, then you're going to have to go through that process. And I would start that process today. I would start figuring out how you're going to do that today. And it's going to take you some time, but I think you need to commit to figuring that out. And if you're asking the question, my hunch is that you're spending more of your time in the day-to-day weeds of your business. And we've all been there. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, but you need to commit to changing the narrative for yourself. And I think you'd be way better suited. We'd always be way better suited if you did that. So that would be my answer to your question. How do you push yourself beyond your comfort zone? Is there a particular moment in your career when embracing discomfort led to a breakthrough? You have to commit to getting out of your comfort zone every single day. That's just what a growth mindset is. You think about it like at the gym. It's amazing how much of life you can actually compare to the gym, and I'm much better at this in business than I am in the gym. For full disclosure, we all have our weaknesses. We have our the areas where it becomes more natural than others. But I think with the kind of gym analogy is something that everyone can relate to or respond to. But if you're into muscle building, there's a belief that the only reps that matter are the ones at the end when you're getting close to failure. That you can't actually lift anymore. And so if you go into the gym and let's say you could do 15 reps, but you just do 8 every single time, you're not actually getting close to that failure. Then you could go to the gym every day for the rest of your life and not make any gains or not actually make any progress. And that happens to so many people in that gym framework. And the same is true for life and for business. You only ever grow and you only ever kind of make that change when you are close to failure, out of your comfort zone, like in an area that you really don't want to push through. Your body, your mind, everything's telling you, hey, let's take a step back, let's give up. But the people that ultimately succeed and do big things are the ones that continue to push forward through that and build that muscle. And it may seem cliche, but it's just so true in business and in any aspect of life. And I think that the gym is an aspect of that. It's the same if you want to train your heart, how do you train your heart? You do it by pushing your heart to the limit and VO2 max training and, getting to the point where you just can't push anymore and doing that at least once a week. And that's the only way that you're ultimately going to build a stronger heart is by doing that. And that's just true in every aspect of life and so true in business. And so, I would argue that, every single day, every single year, every single month, I'm pushing myself and my business outside of the comfort zone and pushing my employees and the people that choose to work here, pushing them past their comfort zone, because that's the only way that we're going to grow and we're going to evolve and we're going to build. Obviously, there are limits to that. If you just train to failure every single day, that also does not work, right? That's you don't, if you're not giving your time, your system or your body the time to recover and to kind of regrow, then that's also bad, right? So there's a limit. You can't just go and push to failure every single day. without having negative consequences. And that's also true in business. Like if you just push to the limits every single day and you never take the time to take a little bit of a step back, make sure you're kind of healing, getting everything in order, ready to push again, that's also problematic. And so figuring out that balance is what's so important. And I feel like, it just ebbs and flows. And I think that once you kind of do it a few times, you kind of get used to what, like saying, hey, I'm going to push myself out of my comfort zone. Now I'm going to push really hard. And then, okay, maybe I pushed a little bit too hard. Now I got to take a little bit of a step back, let things kind of settle here until I'm ready to push forward again. And that's how I think about business, and I try to think about it in the gym too, but I'm not as focused on that as I am on my business, unfortunately. But I do work on it in that context as well. But I do think about it when I'm in the gym every single time, because there are so many analogies between that and between and business, and that's really how I think about pushing out of my comfort zone. Your growth only comes when you push out of your comfort zone. So I've trained myself and the people around me, like, if you're going to come and work here, that is just part of the process, and that's what we expect. And I only want people to come to work here that are going to be comfortable with that and understand that, because that is in our DNA. It's who we are, and how we intend to continue to grow and do bigger things is by pushing ourselves to the limit sometimes, and pushing past that comfort zone, but doing our best to do it in a measured, methodical way that keeps us from overdoing it and overstraining. And there's always a balancing act, and I think that the more that you work at that, the better off you're going to be. Very similarly to the more you work at it in the gym, the better off you're going to be. So that's what I got for you there. There's an idea going around social media right now from the star of the new Captain America movie. They didn't ask me. And his claim is that success is given, not earned. What's your take on this? Success is given, not earned. I don't really know what that means, to be honest with you, but I would disagree with that. At least on the surface of it, to be honest with you. I think that success is something that you have to earn from yourself. And I think that is where people like oftentimes lose sight of it, is like success, like outward success. Maybe that's given to some extent, and sometimes it's beyond your control. But I prefer to focus on the things that I can control, and that is ultimately being the best version of myself. And I do my best to reframe my thoughts and my thinking around, like, if I am making myself proud and I know that I'm doing my best and I'm giving it my all, then that is what success looks like for me. And I would really encourage you or anyone, watching this to really think about reframing success in that way, because it's so easy to get sucked into the accolades or the views if you're on social media, or the likes or the engagement, or the things that the kind of sugar high stuff that people may give you. But true success is being able to look yourself in the mirror every single day and know that you're living the best version and the truest version of your life for yourself. And that is something that can only be earned from yourself, in my opinion. And you have to wake up, like we all know, if we're kind of coasting, or if we're not or if we're not like really giving it our all, or we know if like we're really trying hard and maybe just not seeing results. We know that too, and we need to have some self-grace and some respect for that, like knowing that, hey, yeah, I'm really giving it my all and I'm not making any progress. And that happens sometimes. It certainly happens to me, and it's not fun, but at least then I feel successful even then, because I know that I'm giving it my all and I'm going to keep pushing forward. And so for me, success, internal success, is the only metric that ultimately matters to me. And I think that you only earn that. You're not given that. You only can earn that. And I think that for me is what matters, and how I at least would be thinking about that. X. Hey, David, if you were launching a new product today, what's the smartest, low risk, high reward way to get first paying customer, validate real demand, scale profitability beyond the first channel? Well, first of all, like, you should not be talking, like, you're not talking about scale yet if you're saying you want to launch it. So let's just make sure we're clear. I think you're already putting the cart before the horse a little bit. If you're honest with yourself, is like, you don't need to be worrying about scaling past the first channel until you've maximized that first channel. So first off, I think, just based off of your question, is you need to focus on figuring out how to do this in one channel. I don't know if you're in the physical products realm or in the service kind of a product realm. I think that there are a lot of things now, like within the service world, where like you can kind of go out and figure out, you can sell something before you even have the ability to deliver it. And that's a way to test it. I mean, like, let's think about my air filter example, right? I started out, how I learned about air filters was actually by drop shipping the product from someone else before. Like, I did not start out just manufacturing air filters. I started drop shipping it because I was kind of like trying to decide how big of a market was this. And I did that with a number of different markets. And so that's a very low risk way to say, hey, does my sales channel work for this product? And I'm not worried about making money on those initial products. It's about trying to say, hey, is there a business here or not? And so, like, you do not need to be thinking about profitability on day one. You need to be thinking about, hey, can I go out and validate that there is demand for this? And then then if you can validate that there's demand for it, then you figure out how to offer that service in the most efficient way. And then you go and you start to understand, is there a business here or not, by understanding the economics and the actual business model that you're in. And so, like, if I were going to validate something, then I would have a thesis around a product or a service. I would figure out how I could go out and deliver that service, not with the idea of making money, but just to validate my sales channel. And then try that a little bit, see, like, realistically, if I was going to be able to sell this product or service, even, not making any money in the beginning, but just to see, like, how much demand is there for this thing. And if I'm like, hey, this is actually working, then I'm going to go out and figure out how to deliver that in the most cost-effective way. And once I figure that out, I'm going to say, like, what are the economics of this business? Does it make sense? Do I think I'm going to be able to continue to scale both the sales and the operations of this business? And if the answer is yes, then you have a business that's worth going and figuring out. Once you do that, then you're going to say, okay, well, you have one sales channel that's working. You're going to maximize that sales channel until nothing can be squeezed out of that anymore. Like, you do not want to let up from a sales channel that is working to go and waste your time trying something else until you have squeezed out, as much of the low-hanging fruit of that channel as possible. And generally, like, honestly, that should get you to millions of dollars of revenue. If you're in a big enough market that, in my opinion, is worth pursuing, one channel can get you to the first $5 million of revenue, or let's say $3 to $5 million of revenue. So get it to that point, get profitable at that point before you even think about expanding into the next channel. And then if you want to expand into another channel, you have really two ways of approaching it, in my opinion. Either one, you can say, okay, your existing channel is mature enough that then you have somebody like that is in charge, that you hire somebody to basically run that system that you've already built and continue getting that result over and over again, so that you can step away. If you can do that, that's great. And then you go and you focus your energy on doing the same thing in a second channel. That would be one avenue. Your second avenue would be to say, hey, I know that there's another channel over here that would work. I know nothing about it. I'm going to go hire an expert in that channel to help me to build my system in that channel. And then you hire an expert to go and launch that second channel. So either you're going to go and become the expert yourself and go, like, really maximize that second channel while somebody else is operating the first channel to whatever system you built before, or you're going to hire somebody to help you build that second channel. But don't do that until you've done the first couple of steps. So just to recap, how I would start is I would not be worrying about profitability on day one. I would not be like building lots of inventory or building infrastructure or doing any of that kind of stuff. I would be figuring out, hey, how can I sell this service? Is there enough demand for it? Even if I'm losing a little bit of money or breaking even by servicing it because I'm like paying through the nose for a product because I'm not buying it at scale, or I'm, paying another contractor to do the work before I internalize it, whatever the case might be willing to do that for a little while just to test the waters, see like how much demand there really is. Is it really worth it for you? Is that sales channel going to work? Validate it that way, then, optimize it. Optimize your operations, do all that investment that it's going to take, then maximize that sales channel. That's when you then talk about a second or third sales channel. And if you're in a big enough market that's worth pursuing, then that one single sales channel should get you to at least a few $1 million a year of sales and to decent profitability. And you should not let up until you get to that point. And so I don't know if that helps. Don't know about the details of your business, but that is my best advice. And I firmly believe if you follow that process, you will win. So hopefully that helps. One more, Michael, and then I'm done. Running a fast-growing company can be mentally exhausting. Tell me about it. How do you maintain high energy, focus, and motivation without burning out? By having a long-term vision that excites me, that is worth every day waking up and grinding towards. That's why having that long-term vision is so important. Having clarity of that vision, being real consistent and bought into that. And when you have a vision that's compelling enough for you that it's worth working towards, then you're going to wake up every day and want to inch towards it. And for me, I have a very consistent long-term vision that I've had for a long time, that excites me, that fuels me, that I know is worth waking up every day and being driven towards. And, that's a very personal thing that only you can answer for yourself, only you can find. And I think so many people go through life without any direction, without any, consistency. And that is very, that is very energy consuming, and it's easy to get in a rut and to, lose that energy, lose that spark, because you don't have your why anymore, because you don't really know what it is that you're doing all this work for. You just feel like you're spinning your wheels and you're not getting anywhere. And if you're there, it's probably because you don't have a long-term vision that really excites you. You don't really know where you're going. You don't have a plan. And if you're there, then I really would recommend doing the soul searching, doing the time to kind of figure out what that is for you. And then once you find that, then you're going to find magically that every day you're going to wake up with a pep in your step, because you're ready to get just a little bit closer to whatever that vision is that you set for yourself. And I know that's easy to say and hard to do. And I hope that resonates with you and you really can internalize what that means, because it is such a cheat code. And it's really the only way, if you want to like really craft a life and really build a life, is you have to have that long-term consistent vision that is going to lend to long-term thinking and taking actions that are going to compound in one direction over a long period of time, and enhance your life over a long period of time, rather than changing that vision every single day and flailing and spinning your wheels. Because what you're going to find is that's just going to lead to burnout. It's going to lead to unhappiness, and it's going to lead to misery, quite frankly. And I think that's what happens to so many people, is they get excited about something and say, oh, I'm going to do this. And they do it for like a few weeks. And then they realize that they're burned out. And then they like pick a completely different direction and say, oh, I'm going to go do that. And that's going to be what makes me happy. And they do that for a few weeks, and then they don't see the results they want. And then they move on to the next thing. And that is exhausting. If I was doing that, I would not have the energy to sit here and do a live with you for an hour every Friday, because I would be so burned out. And I see so many people, they get stuck into that trap because they wake up with no consistency, no clear vision, and are working towards a different thing every time I see them. If I see them once a month, and every month it's a new project or a new new lifestyle or whatever the case might be. And that's such an exhausting way to live. And that is why taking the time really to step back, be honest with yourself, find that kind of vision, which, is just so important to, if you really want to craft a meaningful life over a long period of time, which is where I believe you find happiness and fulfillment, which is why if you're early on in your career, I recommend not rushing into anything big. Go out, taste life, get some experience, work for people that that you think have found that you respect. Go out and get that experience, and you don't have to commit to anything more than saying, hey, I'm going to figure out a way to build my dream life, and this is the first start of that process. Is I'm going to go out and kind of taste it a little bit, see how other people are doing it, so that then I can have the experience that puts me in the position of figuring like, hey, this is really the direction I want to devote the rest of my life. This is who I am as a person. This is consistent with that, and I can get excited about this every single day. And I think people rush into stuff because social media tells them to do it, or some guru, or society at large tells them, hey, this is the path to success. And then they get 2 or 3 years into that path, and they realize that, hey, this is not consistent with who I am, or what I want to be getting out of life. And then they're miserable, and they don't understand why. And it's because they didn't take the time to really build the self-awareness and the experience that's going to lead them in that right direction. And so I know it may be easier if I could give you the 10-step program to how to do this. I wish it was that simple. But I just know that you would be so much happier, or we all would be so much happier, if we could really kind of figure out what our long-term vision, long-term goals and dreams are, and then reverse engineer every single day how to get a little bit closer to that. And that is what's going to fuel you, what's going to give you the energy and the staying power to be able to get through those difficult times. And if I have any superpower or any cheat code, I think it's that. And I really hope that you can go out and figure out what that is for you. So with that is our live on mindset. I hope that you found that interesting or useful. Maybe and if you do, just one thing I ask, please is to take the time this weekend or today, if you have the time, to really reflect on that, and really reflect on what your dream life looks like. What is your long-term vision? And 20 years from now, like, how do you feel? What are the what type of relationships do you have? What is it that you're proud of? That and combined with the thought exercise of when you're on your deathbed, like, what are you going to regret? And for me, I'm very clear that the things I know I will regret are the things that I didn't do because I was too afraid to do. It's not going to be the things that I failed at, or the time that I looked stupid, or the time that everybody told me I was crazy. Like, I'm not going to be worried about that. I'm going to be worried about the things that I know that I wanted to do, or I wanted to try, or I should have done, but I didn't take the action of doing it. Like, those are the things that I know I will regret. My guess is you would too. So I think really reflecting on that and thinking about that will allow you to go into next week, hopefully with a little bit of a clear mindset, a little bit of a with more purpose, and will ultimately fuel you to go out and do big things, and ultimately to do the things that you deep down know that you need to be doing, and taking the actions that deep down you should be taking. So with that, Michael says hit the like button. I really would appreciate it. Hope you have a great weekend and a great week ahead. And I will see you next week.